Does slow and steady win the race? The career of hero of the Soviet Union Georgy Zhukov suggests that it does. The rise of the general who will one day personally accept the surrender of Nazi Germany is not exactly spectacular, but rather the result of iron will, toughness, and determination. Welcome to a World War II in real-time biography special, where I look at the major or interesting figures of the war. I'm Indy Neidell. Georgy Zhukov is born in 1896 in the small village of Stelkovka, about 80 miles southwest of Moscow. Though living in the relatively prosperous central industrial region, his childhood is marked by extreme poverty. His father is a tradesman but can never find much work, especially after he is banned from entering Moscow for taking part in the failed 1905 revolution. In 1908, Georgy is sent to find the work his father can't, arriving in the Russian capital at the age of 11 to apprentice as a furrier under his uncle. His life in Moscow is hard. However, he still finds time to enroll in night school and applies himself, beginning what will be a lifelong commitment to learning. Had it not been for the outbreak of war in 1914, he would likely have continued down this path. But like so many young men across the world, after he has turned 18, he is conscripted in the summer of 1915. Now, he is assigned to a cavalry division, and his education means that he's soon trained as a non-commissioned officer. Despite being top of the class, he's nearly thrown out of the course, actually, for insubordination. Still, he completes his training in August 1916 and joins the fighting on the southwestern front, where Russia's successful Brusilov offensive is coming to its end. His fighting experience is action-packed, but brief. He is awarded a St. George Cross for capturing a German officer, but in October is blown off his horse by a mine. Wounded, he is awarded a second St. George Cross and sent behind the lines to recover. By the time he rejoins his unit at the beginning of 1917, Russia is in a state of chaos, and the February Revolution soon breaks out. Soon, Zhukov's unit is ordered by the Bolshevik Soldiers' Committee, who arrest the officers, to form a political committee and send the chairman of it as a delegate to the Regimental Soviet. Zhukov is elected unanimously to the position. He will write in his memoirs that, "I was still politically naive, but I knew the war was good for the rich only, and that only the Bolsheviks could give the Russian people peace, land, and liberty." Well, that's what he will write all those years later. His election is likely down to his having come from poverty, his education, and his popularity among the soldiers rather than a deep political conviction. Not much later, his regimental Soviet disbands its units, and Zhukov finds himself a deserter, though not really by choice. He's still lying low when the October Revolution breaks out. In the winter, he wants to join the Bolshevik Red Guards, but has contracted typhus. By September 1918, he has fully recovered and re-entered military service to fight for the still forming and still growing Red Army in the Russian Civil War. He will now begin his rise, albeit gradually. He joins the Communist Party, becoming a candidate member in March 1919. He sees fierce action and is wounded again in October near Tsaritsyn, which will one day be renamed Stalingrad. By March 1920, he is a full Communist Party member and is then recommended for the Red Commander's cavalry course, completing it in August. In October, he commands a brigade putting down the Tambov Revolt, the largest peasant uprising of the Civil War. It is eventually defeated by the summer of 1921, and Zhukov earns the Order of the Red Banner. By the end of the war, he has a respectable, if not distinguished, service record. He may not be a hero of the Soviet Union, or even given much sign that he will be, but he has shown he is determined, brave, and in a strong position to make a good career in the military. Once hostilities are over, the 5.5 million strong Red Army is dramatically demobilized. By the end of 1924, there are only around 500,000 regular troops who are mainly two-year conscripts. The professional corps of the army quickly becomes very small, meaning Zhukov automatically finds himself among the elite of the Soviet military. Still a young man, he has already been promoted to regiment commander. Throughout the 1920s, he also attends various courses grooming him for high command, courses where he is exposed to advanced theories of warfare. He is committed to constantly learning, often spending what little free time he has reading dense texts. By 1930, his division commander has this to say about him: "A commander of strong will and decisiveness, he possesses a wealth of initiative and skillfully applies it to his job. He is disciplined. He is exacting and persistent in his demands. In military respects, he is well trained. He loves military matters and constantly improves himself. Well, his rise becomes a lot more rapid in the 1930s. In 1931, he is put in command of a whole division. The division also eventually has an armored regiment, which occupies a lot of Zhukov's time and attention, and that is something that will serve him well in the coming years. Already on the upswing, his career rise increases exponentially with the purges that tear through the Red Army in 1937. Stalin is suspicious that Communist Party control has been undermined in the military, leading to his virtually decapitating it. Zhukov's corps commander is arrested, but Zhukov keeps rising. In 1938, he becomes deputy cavalry commander in the Belarusian military district. Despite surviving the purges, he does worry for his safety, reportedly keeping a packed bag by his door in case the secret police come to arrest him. It is probably a relief then when he is transferred to the Far East. The USSR and its client state, the Mongolian People's Republic, have been engaged in an undeclared border war with Japan since its expansion into northeast China in 1931. Around the end of May 1939, the Japanese launch an assault along the Mongolian river Khalkhin Gol. They are pushed back, but casualties are high. Stalin is furious and demands a solution. His experience in mechanized warfare and formidable willpower makes Zhukov that solution. He arrives in June, at first only with the task of inspecting the situation, but his findings on the disorganization and the blunders made so far shock Moscow, who soon put him entirely in charge. Throughout June and July, the two sides spar with each other until the conflict settles into a stalemate. Zhukov breaks it on August 20th, launching a massive offensive against the Japanese. His artillery and air force bombard Japanese positions, then a combined infantry and armored assault follows. The Japanese are then flanked and eventually encircled. By August 31st, they have been cleared from Mongolian territory. Zhukov is flushed with success. His tenacious use of armor and its combination with infantry and air power is a sign of where warfare is heading. He is awarded Hero of the Soviet Union. In May 1940, he is recalled to Moscow and made an army general. He meets Stalin for the first time in early June, who is impressed and sends Zhukov to take command of the Kiev Special Military District, one of the most important postings in the Red Army. Once there, Zhukov encourages innovation and combat readiness. He takes particular interest in a young man called Mikhail Kalashnikov, whom he sends to Moscow to develop his inventions. This kickstarts the career of the man who will one day design the iconic AK-47. Just thought I'd say that. Zhukov also assists in preparations for war against Germany. At a conference in December 1940, he details how offensive operations can coordinate air power, armor, artillery, and motorized infantry like he did at Khalkhin Gol. He's also involved in extensive wargaming scenarios in the new year to test out such methods on the ground. In February, he takes up his highest posting yet, Chief of the General Staff. I will leave what he actually does in the war from then on for the regular weekly series. But it should be clear by now that this Soviet general is a man of iron will and steely determination. He has risen from lowly tradesman to the very top of Soviet high command and become a committed communist on the way. His career still has some twists and turns in store, but his role in what will be the most deadly conflict in history is set. Obviously, there is a lot more to be said about Georgy Zhukov, his personality, his theories about warfare, and how these things affected his performance in the Second World War. And I will cover all of that and more in another special about Zhukov when his life and his career become once again relevant to the weekly episodes. And that will, in fact, even involve a story about Coca-Cola. Now, if you would like to learn about the purges that gave Zhukov that big career boost, you can watch this Between Two Wars episode we did about that right here. Do not forget to subscribe and ring that bell, and I'll see you next time.